So the other day I broke my brake. Well, not really broke, just it broke itself and I had to fix it. And I thought, this is something that I know a bit about because obviously I've had to fix it. So I'm going to do a bit of a video talking about that. We'll do an actual intro now. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to another video. I did a bit of a quick intro just there. But basically, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about something that I had to do with my wheelchair recently, which is for these things, the brakes. I'm going to be showing you what happened to them, talk about how often it happens, as well as how to correct it when it happens. Now, this won't solve all brake issues, but it will solve most of them, as well as some wheel issues as well. So, let's get into it. Okay, so I feel like the first thing that we need to mention is, what happened to the brakes. So, as you can see, the brakes are on pretty tightly now. Whenever they're on, it doesn't really allow the wheel to move. Obviously, you can do it. It's not the best brake in the world, but it does do a pretty good job at stopping the chair from moving. It's important to note with these brakes is that it's not designed to stop you moving. It's designed to keep you still when you've stopped moving. So that's just something to keep in mind on how to use the brakes that I think a lot of people get wrong. But basically, as you can see, it's pretty tight. Whenever I put the brake on, if I just clear a bit off, you can see that when I push the brakes down, they push the wheel in a little bit. Now that's because I didn't quite do it right, but to be honest, that's not too bad, and I think that's about as tight as I'd go with it. So what happened was this brake was far forward, so whenever it would... So I'm going to take the wheel off just to show you guys, because the way that the brake works is when you put it on, it will snap it into place like that, and it will only go that far back. Because of this thing, this is what the brake is attached to, and you can adjust the length of the brake with this. Now, what happened to mine was that the brakes had been pushed forwards. Again, I'm going to need to brake the wheelchair just to show you guys, but hang on a sec, hang on. So this thing here had been loosened, probably just from me putting the brakes on and stuff. So, obviously this is me breaking it to show you, but this is also how you'd fix it, so it doesn't really matter that much. So, this wasn't done with an Allen key to loosen it. Obviously, this just happened over time. They had become a bit loose, and that meant that this thing could now be moved up and down. Because this is basically just a clamp. That is pretty much all it is. And then these screws here will keep it in place. So what had happened is these had been pulled forwards, right? And then if I readjust the camera again, so you see now, whenever I put this brake on, first off, the wheelchair moves. Second off, it's not actually touching the brake. There. And that's basically what happened. Obviously, it wasn't as far away. It was kind of just not making enough contact. So it was a loose brake rather than a not completely working brake, if that makes sense. So basically, I needed to do something about it because I need brakes. And then if we just compare it to this side, just again real quick, brake on, it's touching, it's also a lot harder to take off. But with this side, the brake's on and it's doing jack shit. So what you need to do is get an Allen key. Now, I don't know what Allen key you would need for yours. Everyone's chair is slightly different with that. But basically, I usually keep the brake on. Do you remember earlier I was showing you this thing in here? Find these screws here and loosen them off. Just so you can adjust everything. Now, I already loosened them a little bit, so I'll just do it a little bit more. Now, what you notice is that this bit can move, like the entire brake assembly, or just this thing, which just came out. Now, what you want to do is try and make sure that that thing is far enough out of the way that it's not going to affect you. And then push the brake up until it's touching the wheel. So like you can't really see it, but the part that touches the wheel and makes contact with the wheel is now touching the wheel. So what I'd recommend doing is then, once you're at that point, undoing the brake and pushing it back just a couple of millimeters. So for me, it's literally just before the fourth hole here. I don't know how you can see that, but like just before this bit, like just over. No, that's a little bit too far. Hang on. It depends on where you got this as well, so just keep that in mind. But I'd say there, undo it there, push it back just the tiniest amount. So then you can, I'd recommend just doing one up, just so you can see what it's going to be like, obviously without having to do everything back up again, because that's going to be quite annoying. So do that up pretty tight, because you don't want it to just move again after. Now I did it a little bit too tight and it's not quite in the right place, so I need to undo that again. Undo this. So this is the thing that we're doing everything with. Just so you can see from this side. So basically what I'm trying to do is make my brake touch that, like that. Undoing the brake and pushing it back just a bit. So not too much, otherwise when you put it on, it will obviously have some issues. Now also you might want to think about how far out your brake sticks out. Now I prefer mine to have a little bit of overhang here. So I'd say that is about right for me. So I'll push the brake up against there, not putting it on just yet, doing this back up, tightening it, and then putting the brake on, seeing how well it works. I'm quite happy with this. Might do it just a little bit tighter. You know, I'll just do this again one more time. So this does take quite a lot of fiddling. It's quite a bit of guesswork, but you know, it does pay off to have good brakes. But now what can you use this for? So you can either solve it for if your brakes just get loose and move around. That happens just with use. You know, putting the brakes on does push them out quite a bit. So being able to put them back after they've been moved out of place is good. But it also helps if your tread is running a little bit low, or like the air in your tires is a little bit lower. So there is that. Obviously I'll do it up quite tight. I'll kind of do it as tight as I can manage, just because with the brake it's not something that you want to be changing too much. Like, you want to be changing it enough so it works for you, and then trying not to adjust it any more than that. So I feel like if you look in the wheel, obviously it's a little bit awkward, but that side is in a pretty good place and that side is in a very similar place, and that is basically it. All you really needed was an Allen key, you know, just to be able to fix the brakes here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, there isn't much more to it than that. It's sometimes a little bit awkward and fiddly, just to be able to get everything in the right place and keep it there. Because obviously it would be so much easier if you could put the brakes on, move the thing, and then see what it's like. But obviously if you put the brakes on, then it's going to be pushing out, which then makes it a little bit harder. So that is basically what I had to do at college this week, because obviously the brakes misaligned a little bit. And it's a pretty simple fix, one that I wasn't taught about, but it's pretty simple once you have a look at how it works. You know, like with a lot of things with wheelchair, if you just have a look at like how the parts go together and things like that, then you can see how easy it is to fix, if that makes any sense. But that is going to be it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, all of that usual stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and bye.